Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our weekly coffee with Colleen. Today, we're calling it Latte with Lori only because Colleen, as you can see, is not here this morning. She is back on the East Coast with her family and friends. Her mom, Lynn, had passed away earlier this year in February, and so they were able to have her burial at the Arlington National Cemetery yesterday on Halloween. So she will not be joining us this morning. So I will be filling in this morning as Rebecca had filled in last week for our Coffee with Colleen chat. So I just want to do a few house cleaning items this morning. If everyone would please put yourself on mute so we don't receive any intermediate communications in the background. And then we are going to kick off this morning with our guest, Malissa Williams, who is the executive director of the Feiro Marine Life Center here on the peninsula. And she did provide me a little background, and so I'm going to kind of read it this morning. Malissa came to the Feiro Marine Life Center in May in 2014, and she had been at the John G. Shed Aquarium in Chicago for 7 years prior to that. And she comes to us with a background in science and behaviors of science, and she also has a degree in psychology from New College, Florida, and she has a master's degree in instructional leadership from the University of Illinois in Chicago. And I'm sure that Malissa can go into a little more detail with that. But we are very thankful, Malissa, to have you on our Coffee with Colleen chat this morning to provide us with some great updates and what is going on in your world. I don't know if you have any of your staff on this morning, but if you do, you can introduce those guests as well.
Thanks, Lori. I really appreciate the invitation to present on this program, as well as thank you all of you for getting up so early and joining us. I do not have any staff with me right now because they have a lot of different jobs, and I think they've heard what I have to say to you about 62 times already. So I think they'll be, but we have a great team at Feiro. We have 4 full-time staff members now and 3 part-time staff members, and I'll talk a little bit about that actually in the presentation when we talk about the economic impact of our advancing change. So if I
With
can,
that being said,
yeah.
Malissa, to everyone, of course, Colleen will always mention she likes to make this chat interactive. So if anybody has a question, they could raise their hand or put their question in the chat, and we will give you an opportunity to answer any questions that anyone on the call has this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the screen.
Oh, let me give you permission. There you go. You're set.
You. Okay, so we should be good. So this is an early photo of the Feiro Marine Life Center right around just after 1981, November, when it opened, and has already been renamed at this point to the Arthur D. Feiro Marine Lab, which happened shortly after his death in February of 1982. Anyway, so you can see that the building has we live on City Pier. We have been there since we started, and you can see the purpose of the building was really as a lab space for Peninsula College. Those habitats there on the right side, pretty tall, hard for short little kids to look in or for people in wheelchairs to access. That's all marine grade plywood. All of those were hand built and hand plumbed by volunteers. And actually really turned out to be amazing because the goal of the space, in addition to being a lab for the college, was to be open on the weekends and in the summers as much as possible to the general public, because Mr. Feiro's vision was that if you could see what was under the water, you might think differently about how we treat what's in the water. And so he really wanted to make sure that this was a space that was open and welcoming to people. The building itself is actually owned by the city of Port Angeles, and we are no longer officially affiliated with Peninsula College. That ended in 2008 when we became a standalone 501c3 nonprofit. As a nonprofit, we do a number of different education programs in alignment with our mission. We have our public exhibits, which are probably the thing we are most well known for. These are those tall tanks you just saw are now much shorter and more accessible to people. We have a variety of touch tanks, which is what's shown here, but we also display other marine life and local habitats of the region. We are exclusively focused on the marine life of the North Olympic Peninsula, and everything, just about everything in our collection comes from about 20 miles around Port Angeles. We have been able to make some kind of interesting visitor improvements in the last few years. This is a great example. It is all moon jellies, and this is about Pacific Northwest jellyfish, and it's sponsored by the Rotary. So we're able to get a brand new habitat and new signage and really make this area look pretty swanky. We also have a number of outreach programs. This is one that we did at Clallam Bay with the North Olympic Library System. This is a program we do free. Our volunteers and staff go out and help people understand and explore what's in the tide pools. This is an outreach program that we do with our school partners. So any school from actually any school now, if you're in the vicinity of Port Townsend to Joyce, is able to participate in this program. We've even done this program for students from North Kitsap. It is called Watershed Science, and it is a 6-hour field study. We also do a pre-visit in the classroom and exploring what watersheds are. You'd be shocked to learn that most fourth graders think that they're a roof that water lands on. But we help them understand about our topographic region and what it means in terms of rainfall and how our river systems are created and what that means for the flow of water into spaces like our harbor. This is the kids in Olympic National Park, just behind the visitor center there on Race, taking the pH of the water in that managed stream. We go walk them all the way from Olympic National Park all the way down to the waterfront, following the natural flow of Peabody Creek. Obviously, in some points, it's in a culvert, and so they understand what's happening to the creek as it goes through the space into where it comes out on that estuary.
Melissa, how many students visit or participate with the school program annually?
Yeah, since COVID, things have been a little different. Last year, I think we had 14 classrooms go through this program. So that's probably about, our classroom averages are down slightly now, so 18 students per classroom. But we always write for grant funds, and we were grateful to have partial funding this year from the Haller Foundation. So we'll be able to help kids have this experience again this year. We also have a program that not a ton of people know about. Not every child is interested in animals or biology. Some of them really just like building things and engineering. And so this is underwater robotics. We have had this both as an after-school program and a summer camp. This is a picture of the summer camp for 10 to 12-year-olds, and they build these robots and fly them. And this happens to be in the Red Lion pool at the end of the summer camp. They've been very gracious to donate their space to us. In addition to education programs, we also do citizen science programming. And one of the citizen science programs that we participate in is as an authorized representative of the NOAA West Coast Marine Mammal Stranding Network. This happens to be one of the few seals that we have had a candidate for rehabilitation and release. This was a pup that had been attacked by a dog on Nita's Hook and went to SR3 over in Des Moines and was successfully rehabilitated and returned to the water. Not all seals are a candidate for this, and this is just a great example of partnerships. And our response territory extends from just west of the John Wayne Marina all the way out to the border with Macaw.
Hey, Melissa, can I ask you what makes
Yeah.
them eligible for rehabilitation?
Oh, yeah.
and release?
It's usually a situation where the animal has been interfered with by a human. So in this case, a dog would be, interfered with by a human, even though it was a dog, but the dogs belong to humans.
Yeah, so you're saying that if it were natural, if he were injured naturally, you couldn't help him or
It's
her?
just not a high priority. So it's an interesting in Washington State, not to get too deep into this, but Washington State, there is a list of eligibility criteria because of how few spaces for rehabilitation we have. B, the fact that the rehabilitation centers are all concentrated in the Seattle region and require more than a 4-hour transit time. So every animal has to get evaluated by a vet to make sure it's actually strong enough to make the trip. A lot of times, the trip in the car is even more stressful than the situation they have on the beach. And then thirdly, our seal and sea lion population, to be honest, out here is totally fine. Although these animals are still protected by the Marine Mammal Protection Act, they're not really endangered in any way, shape, or form. And what happens is when animals pass away naturally, like they're supposed to, they end up being important food sources for the rest of our ecosystem. And as an organization that spends a lot of time working with crabs and worms and tube worms and all the other, we have to recognize that they have important nutrient needs as well. And so these animals are part of a natural ecosystem cycle, and we respect that as much as possible. Does that answer your question, Rebecca?
That is so interesting to me. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I'm happy to chat more about that at a different time too, with anyone that's interested.
Thanks.
Okay, so you can see we're actually doing quite a lot of programming. Not all of it is inside, although a number of the programs happen inside. So why are we spending so much time and energy talking about a new building? Well, first of all, I mentioned we were part of Peninsula College. It was a purpose-built building. It wasn't really built to be what's now known in the business as a public aquarium, which is an aquarium space focused pretty exclusively, say 70-80% on helping educate the public. And so the aquarium exhibits are small, the space is loud, and it's not really designed to facilitate what modern visitors have come to expect. And the building also has had seawater running through it for 43 years. And you can imagine that that has been rather corrosive to the infrastructure. We have already extensively explored remodeling on our current site, but we just cannot make the building large enough at City Pier and up on a public land to offer the kind of future financial picture that we have to be sustainable. So the new building, in addition, offers us new opportunities, including professional accreditation through an organization called the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which is made up of I think more than 110 organizations across the US and overseas. They emphasize education, animal care, and conservation research, and being accredited opens new avenues to funding. So we aren't doing this alone. I think that's really important to mention. We are working together with the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary. They, if you can see on the map there, the designation of the sanctuary is off of Washington's west coast. It starts from just around Nia Bay and goes down to about the mouth of the Copalis River. It's just over 3,200 square miles and extends to the seafloor. You can see the topographic area there. There's a number of canyons and deep sea trenches that are protected by the sanctuary. The sanctuary itself was founded because of an oil spill that happened off the coast. And so I think it's important to remember that one of the main purposes of this area is to delay, should another ship incident happen, their goal is to delay the oil from ever reaching our shore so that we can respond to it further out at sea and hopefully minimize the damage to things like commercial fishing, tribal lands, natural spaces co-managed by the national park, etc. There's no restriction on fishing. There's a lot of economic activity that happens in the sanctuary, and people don't always understand what its limitations are. But the Feiro and the sanctuary have been working together in education for over 20 years. And so it felt natural that we would work together in a visitor services capacity. They do have a small visitor services center. It's been at the wharf or the landing mall before that since about 2004. And it's another sort of small space. And it hasn't necessarily been a priority for their line of funding to do a wholesale renovation of this area. I will say all kudos to the wharf, because since they have remodeled and added that fantastic rear entrance there, the visitorship to this OCDC has like gone through the roof. So this summer they had one of the highest numbers of visitor counts they've ever had. And we really think that's because the wharf is such an attractive, inviting place for people to go now. Okay, so where are we looking at moving? We are working with the Port Angeles Waterfront Center campus. So that's the Field Arts and Events Hall, the Lower Elwha Clallam Cultural Center, and what's tentatively called the Marine Discovery Center, because it isn't just the new Feiro, it also is part and parcel with this NOAA Olympicos National Marine Sanctuary. So at some point we'll give it a proper name, but at the moment we're just calling it Marine Discovery Center. So it'll be on the west side of town. Hopefully you've all been to something or been to the Field Arts and Events Hall. It is a gorgeous building, really good sound, very comfortable seats, and a pretty good grab and go lunch. So it's a great place to stop in. You can see the configuration on the site here. So we will be on the furthest west end of the property, directly across from North Olympic Healthcare and adjacent to the waterfront trail. We are working together with our architects, and we have done quite a bit of planning already. The main sort of concept of the building, in short, is that water connects us all. And whether you are an industrial business or a commercial fisher person, or you are a recreational user, or you simply like to drink the stuff, which we all have to do, what's going on in the water matters to you. And what we do here on the peninsula matters to everywhere else, because eventually a drop of water in our harbor will make its way through all of the ocean basins and vice versa as the currents rotate. So as I mentioned, we've been through a number of design phases already. We actually had started this project before the COVID pandemic. We took a big pause. We reconcepted some things coming out of that. And then we went through our exhibit and exterior conceptual design. So those are all complete. We are waiting on a couple $1 million from NOAA to begin our schematic design phase. We're stuck somewhere in contracting, and so hopefully that'll get unlog jammed soon and we can get moving on that. We're working with an architect out of Seattle that is well known for designing live animal and museum exhibits. They're called MIG. And whenever I mention this or talk to somebody who is in the business, they are very impressed that this is super excited about it, because they do great work. So we should be glad that we've got a quality team on board. The architects, of course, went through and did a lot of work with us in the concept design, spent a lot of time thinking about the way the building is shaped and oriented and how it relates to the other buildings on the campus. And we have a beautiful design that is all wood facing on the outside there with some tall windows. This is slightly before some of the code changes at the city, and so we think there will be a few more windows along Front Street there, but this is the Front Street view with the main entrance. The building is 13,000 square feet and 2 stories high, but 1 usable floor. And in part, that's because we want to hang some very large things from the ceiling, including a life-size sculpture of a humpback whale. But also for a reason I'll mention in just a second, because we have some pretty exciting new exhibits coming. So the Marine Discovery Center, when we worked on the conceptual design, we estimated a visitation of about 75,000 visitors. That's approximately 4 to 5 times what we're getting now. At Feiro currently, we see about 1/3 of our visitors from the Olympic Peninsula, 1/3 from the Seattle Tacoma area, and 1/3 from, everywhere else, just like of other businesses here. I think the last time I looked at a whole year's worth of data, we had seen all 50 states in about 29 different countries. This number includes students, program participants, and general visitors that are just going to see the exhibits. We will remain focused on the Olympic Peninsula coast. We're going to focus on local places. So our sort of coastal corner, I'm calling it, the area that extends from about Protection Island all the way out west to Macau and down to about Ocean Shores will all be covered in this building. We will continue to have live animals, including our invertebrates and marine fish that we already are exhibiting. We'll have new signage, digital experiences, and other innovative museum type exhibits. We will also be able to host. Oh yeah,
Melissa, with the visitors that come to the Olympic Peninsula, third
Mhm.
from Seattle and Tacoma, do they normally come for a day stay, or do they normally come and actually stay overnight and do other things in our local area?
We've had all different stories. Some people literally drive out from Seattle just for the day to see Hurricane Ridge and then stop in and see us. Some people are there for the weekend, and so they've got an Airbnb and they're, eating dinner and going to things and doing stuff. It really spans all types. The other week, well, I guess it wasn't the other week. It might have been in September. We had a grandfather and his grandson that came up from Poulsbo because his grandson really wanted to see fish, and we were the only thing open close by that they could do that. They didn't want to go to Seattle. So it's an interesting mix of visitors that we get and rationales why they're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. We are going to have an expanded education space. So the education center is going to be named after Mr. Feiro. And that space will have 2 interior classrooms separated by a movable wall, as well as an outside classroom. So we'll be able to host up to 75 people inside. We'll have lots more special events. And of course, we'll have a gift shop. A lot of times people ask me, well, this seems clearly connected to people who are visiting. And I don't disagree that that's an important part of the business model. I would just argue for every business on the peninsula that a lot of locals enjoy. I co-own a barbecue restaurant in downtown Port Angeles with my partner, and it's clear that summer is a busy season and fall is not as busy. And summer is populated with people from out of the area, and fall is mainly people who live here. So in a lot of cases, you're making a significant amount of your revenue in the summertime. And I think that explains why we have such a good, strong diversity right now of things like restaurants, especially. But there are plenty of benefits to locals for this building, and we really want to stay focused on that. We will just have more for people to see and do. Right now, I get a lot of people who say, oh, I bring people to see you when my grandkids are in town, or when I have people in who are visiting. We will just be able to expand the programming and the comfort of the experience so much more in this new building. It will be something, and we'll have a space for some rotating exhibits. It will be something that you might want to just come to yourself. We will also be able to be slightly more inclusive. We've really worked hard in our summer camp programs and other spaces to be inclusive of especially children who have sensory processing disorders like autism. And we know that our current concrete floors and sound bouncing everywhere just does not make it a very friendly space for those folks. And so we'll be able to expand our capacity so that if you want to bring your kid down on a quiet morning, it'll be very easy to do so. We also will just be able to increase the programming that we're offering to local groups, after school clubs, scout badges, overnight programs, more student programs. We'll be able to bring more cool research like ship to shore from scientists that are out in the field. We'll additionally be onboarding a lot of NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries programming through our partnership. We'll host more summer camps so they won't always be sold out all the time. More programs with the library, childcare programming, and then just a cool place to hang out and have some small gatherings. We know that the field hall's got an amazing event space. We are definitely not setting ourselves up for competing with that. But if you want to have a cocktail party or a birthday party or something in a space with live animals, we've got you covered. I mentioned the change in displays, and then I think we'll also have a lot more ways to interact and connect with student groups and service clubs. So there'll just be much more capacity in our offerings, and I think that's much more of a benefit to locals than it is to people who live somewhere else. So I mentioned we've gone through conceptual design. We're waiting to move into schematic design. I'll show you our exhibit floor plan briefly. The building, as I mentioned, is 13,000 square feet and 1 floor. You'll see an outline of that life-size sculpture of the humpback whale that I discussed earlier. But you will also see under letter F, a label that says seabirds and the world's ocean. And that is the other reason why we have such a tall roof line, is because this exhibit is approximately a floor and a half of live seabirds. Specifically, we're looking at tufted puffins, common murres, maybe some shorebirds, and also some of our local ducks. And we really believe strongly that this is going to be a wow experience, something that you don't get unless you go to Seattle or Tacoma or down to Newport, Oregon. You can't get this otherwise locally. And we are doing it in conjunction with so many people who know so much about caring for birds. We've had a partnership with Arnold and Debbie Schouten, who are raising birds at Dry Creek Waterfowl Sanctuary and have been for a long time. And they have relationships with Alaska Sea Life Center and the Oregon Coast Aquarium and lots of accredited facilities that care for birds. We also have community champions such as the Wild Birds Unlimited, the Olympic Peninsula Audubon Society, and the International Bird Rescue, which is an international organization that helps respond and care for birds under oil spill conditions. And so if any of you were here long enough to remember the 1985 Arco Anchorage oil spill in the harbor, we know that we had a lot of oiled birds here to clean, and luckily the science has advanced. Well, I guess luckily and not luckily, the science has advanced a lot since then because we've had a lot of oil spills to learn from. But we want people to understand how these animals use both the marine environment to feed as well as our terrestrial sea stacks to breed and have more babies. And, no offense to sea stars, I love a sea star, but they're just not that charismatic. They don't move a ton. And birds are very gregarious. They're social. They swim in the water, they preen themselves, they eat cool food. And so we think these are also going to really capture people's hearts as well. Did they really use Dawn to clean the birds? Yes and no. There is a protocol, but it's not just Dawn. I think they've learned a little bit since then. Yeah. Okay. So you'll see just all the pieces I just described, the partnership with the sanctuary, ocean science exploration. We all obviously are going to have some great human stories in this exhibit, not just animals. And we want people to really understand that we're all part of that one ocean. Okay. So here's a couple concept sketches of the kinds of exhibits that we'll have. This is a digital touch table. It's multi-sided, and so users on every side can have their own experience. So these are great if you want to show location information or historical information, such as shipwreck data. This will be a great tool to use for that. This is a conceptual overhead that's meant to be the humpback whale on the hanging from the roof. On the left is live animals, and then on the right is more of that science and human component. On the far end, this is facing Front Street, and the far corner there is the touch tanks. We will still have those. This is that concept for the learning lab I mentioned. We probably won't have a skeleton hanging from the ceiling in here, but we will have an underwater robotics test tank permanently installed in the outdoor classroom. And so we'll be able to bring back the full suite of those programs. Seabird, I mentioned the very tall exhibit. So these are birds that use cavities to nest. And so they'll have nest boxes for nesting activity. But as you can see in the front, they'll also be swimming, and humans will be able to watch them. Some humans at eye level, other humans slightly shorter. Next steps in the design and fundraising. So we have the Inflation Reduction Act money I mentioned, $3 million that goes towards core and shell only. And so we're working on matching fund of about $500,000 specific to exhibit design. And I'll just back up a second here to show you that all of these things require a certain placement of our walls, which are part of core and shell, but the actual exhibit components, if they need to move 6 inches, you can't have planned all your walls and then figure out how to move your exhibit. So we need to do all of this design at this simultaneously. And so the money that isn't covered through NOAA or isn't allowed to be spent by NOAA on the exhibits, we're raising private funds for. We've raised about $135,000 of that 500 already. Once we get through this, which includes all of our environmental studies, our core and shell design, we will pretty much be shovel ready at that point. And then every dollar we collect after that is just going right towards construction. And then on the right, we have an estimated pie chart of our funding by source. Obviously, partnering with NOAA is important, and we think there's additional federal funding we will be eligible for. Everyone that we've talked to that is currently in office and a staff member is very supportive of this project. Obviously, as elections change things, we'll have to keep going back and talking to folks and engaging with them. That's also true, obviously, of any government, but we are primarily right now looking at individual gifts as our earliest gifts, because once you get an individual, a solid individual commitment, it unlocks so many more funds from foundations, corporations, and government. They want to see that the community is committed. So a lot of our fundraising right now is focused on individuals who can give at higher levels.
Melissa, will you start the build before you have all the funds raised?
So traditionally you start at about 80%, which is also what ends the thing that's called the quiet phase of your capital campaign. And I've been joking all over town that I am probably putting on the loudest quiet phase in the history of capital campaigns by making all of these presentations. But what we have discovered is that people are really excited about this project, and we don't know everyone. And we honestly, prices are increasing all the time, and we want to make sure we can build this building as quickly as possible. And so if I go out and make these presentations, you yourself might not be an individual who is interested or able to give at a higher level right now, but you might know someone who is. And it turns out that we are meeting with a lot of individuals who have heard about this project through their friend who is a member of a service club, or a member of the Audubon Society, or someone connected to the EDC. So it turns out that this is actually a pretty strong strategy for us to reach additional people who are not only interested in seeing the Marine Discovery Center be completed, but just the entire downtown Port Angeles Waterfront Center campus be finished off and ready for, not just have a vacant lot next to the field hall.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we haven't done an economic study for the Marine Discovery Center, and I'll talk about that in a second. But what I can say is that if you look at our existing economic activity for the last year, we have 4 full-time staff members at Feiro now, an executive director, that's me, a facility director who also manages all of our animal care responsibilities, a development director, that's Tamara Galvan is our facility director, Linty Hopi is our development director, and Rachel Brown is our education manager. She basically manages every single one of our programs that we do. We have 4 part-time staff in the areas of guest services. So Disa Wilson, our development assistant is Nola Greer, janitorial is Tristan Bell, and our campaign coordinator is Dami Rodriguez. And then we have a seasonal part-time person that varies every summer, and a Washington Conservation Corps member, which is relatively new for us. This is our second member, currently serving as Gavin Truckenmiller, and he focuses with Rachel on education and outreach. And a lot of our community has provided the funding to make sure that that continues to happen. Our total payroll last year was approximately $318,000. That's combined capital campaign and operating, and our non-payroll expenses about $123,000. And last year we had approximately 15,000 guests. Sorry, this year we had approximately 15,000 guests. We have not conducted an economic impact study of the future building, largely because we really would like to build the building, and every dollar we spend on doing something else means that we have to raise more for the construction. Should there be a real hue and cry on whether this is going to impact our economy to the plus, we would really be fine with doing an economic impact study. But truthfully, we feel pretty good about what we know about our existing business transitioning to even better business, in terms of payroll, in terms of the quality of the wage that we'll be able to offer, in terms of the construction benefit to our community, and then additionally, in terms of the stay time for tourists, people that are in the community and want to spend more time. Right now, unless you're truly interested in marine animals, you could get through Feiro in about 15 to 20 minutes if you give it a good effort. We obviously have people that stay much longer, but the minimum stay time for the new building is projected to be an hour, which then turns into maybe 2 hours. And that means lunch, or you need a coffee break, or you need, more time in your day to also drive to the next stop at Solduck. So that alone will help the stay time for tourism. So that's the reason we haven't gone down the road of the economic impact. Our construction estimate, again, it's an estimate, it's a range, and we all know that pricing changes all the time, but we're looking at $25 to $27 million and approximately 18 months of construction time. Again, our estimated future staff payroll in today's dollars is a little $750,000 and includes 10 full-time positions, and adding positions in animal care. We will need a specialized animal care person just for the bird exhibit. That person's called an aviculturist, and it is a pretty common position in other places. I was just presenting to the International Wild Waterfowl Association on Saturday, and I got 2 or 3 business cards from animal care professionals who would really like to move here and work at this new facility. So I thought that was pretty positive. We'll be expanding in the area of education, and then also in hospitality, sales, and marketing. Our estimated non-personnel annual expenses, again in today's dollars, $360,000. We get asked all the time how much a ticket will cost. We're working on estimates now, but admission pricing also is something that changes. And so we'll keep pace with market rates for similar attractions, but we are very dedicated to having financial accessibility opportunities. I mentioned programming we do with the library. We do currently have free family passes, so you can go check out a pass. Anyone can go check out a pass from North Olympic Library System. We also just recently were funded by Kitsap Bank to do a Tide Pool Treasures program, which is anyone who holds a SNAP /EBT card can come in with up to 4 people free with their ID. So that program has actually been extraordinarily popular, even more so than the one with the library, because there's only 1 pass, or there's 3 passes available per week, but you obviously have to get on the list and be available to go. You can just walk up to the desk with your SNAP card and your EBT and your ID and come in right away. And I mentioned already about 75,000 guests and program participants. Pretty much the last thing I'll just say is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. That's the accreditation organization I mentioned. That really gets us into a network of organizations from across the country. And in addition to animal transfer and leadership training, collaborative resources, they have an incredible arm of lobbying and have managed to basically restrict a lot of funding that happens at the government level, at the federal level, to accredited members only. And so we are now starting to also see that happen at the state level. So recently, Washington State passed a cultural access tax program, probably are already aware, and that is now restricted to if you have live animals, you cannot participate in the cultural access tax program unless you have AZA accreditation. So even at the state level, that is becoming more of an issue. And so our goal is to go ahead and receive that accreditation, which is not easy, but I think important. Okay. That is the basic presentation. I tried to throw in more economic information than I'm usually talking about with our donors. And I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Melissa, that was a great presentation. I learned so much. I was trying to look on the one slide that you had all the different areas that were going to be in the new site. Did I see, was there an aquarium in there, or did I miss that piece?
Oh, there are many aquariums in there. I think we're looking at about, last I counted, about 20 wet spaces. So in addition to touch tanks, we also have a pretty large rocky reef exhibit, which will have some kelp and lots of rockfish. We do have a space for an octopus. We have what are called jewel tanks. So those are the little tanks lining the walls here. I can't get my cursor to work. There you go. Here and here. And those are going to highlight things that we highlight a lot at Current Feiro, which are always guest favorites, such as the 6-armed sea star babies, which are about the size of a couple of grains of rice stuck together, and everyone always likes to see baby things. And so we want to make sure we're not just making things bigger, but also that we're highlighting all the little stuff we're well known for. So there'll be lots and lots of live animal aquariums in this space.
Okay. And also, oh, James has a question. James, would you like to ask your question?
I was just wanting to see the plot plan where this sits on the property. I mean, I'm having a hard time figuring out where these doors are relative to the land.
Oh, sure. There you go. So the bottom of this design is Front Street, and the top is the waterfront trail. Does that help?
And what's in the middle? The lower Elwha, what is that?
They're intending to build a cultural center on site.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then how far off the street are you?
I think that says 8 feet.
Okay, so you are butted up kind of as close to the street as you can, and
Yes.
you've used the land as well as you can.
Yes.
All right. Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, James. Melissa, are you guys going to have any programs where you train people for local prosperity wage jobs?
Well, that's an interesting question. And I think one of the things that we discovered about the underwater robotics after school club is that we have had such a great response when we've been able to get those students in middle school and mentor them all the way through their high school years. Many of them have gone on to college, to engineering jobs. And so we're really interested in to see what this new facility will help us do as it relates to more local positions. And that's definitely a conversation we can continue to have with employers in the area or with the college or with you, because we'll have this space, which we don't have now, and we could do a lot more of those types of mentorships and internships.
Great, that's wonderful. Because one of our highest leakage for workforce is leaves the peninsula. So we want to create those jobs to keep people here on the peninsula. I see Laurel has her hand raised. Laurel, you have a question?
Well, it's more of a comment. I'm a member of the board of Feiro and a fairly recent addition, and I joined it because in my profession doing for design, marketing, and communications, I see a huge benefit that's not quantifiable in a data points sense, but to have a center like this right out in front where it shows the most to visitors and locals alike, it will engender, I think, a new set of opinions, attitudes about our area that's bound to have a huge effect over time, intangibly, on our economic health. I think when people come here, it may be that they're still operating off the old assumptions of Port Angeles is just some like podunk mill town or something. And I know from personal experience with friends visiting, when they first saw the field hall, their jaws literally dropped. I had to pick them up off the sidewalk. And this is in that vein. And what this does is it lifts us up. It contributes to lifting us up as a community in all ways, including economically, but as well as, pride of living here, pride of being a part of the North Olympic Peninsula community. And since I've been on the board, I've come to feel these things more strongly. So I just wanted to throw that out there. There's a ton of benefits that come with this. A lot of them are intangible and hard to quantify, but those may be the most important ones.
Thank you, Laurel, for those comments. Melissa, Laurel's one of you on your board of directors. How many
Yeah.
board of directors do you have, and who is on your board?
Oh goodness. Okay. I think we're at 11 now. I think we'll have 12 in January. We have another person that's coming on in January. We have current president is Kathy Charlton. We've got Gary Kreidberg as our secretary. Ian Miller is our treasurer. Bob Milner is our vice president. Bob, most of you might not know Bob. He was in Noon Rotary for a while, but he's retired here. His wife runs a Social Security office, and he, in a former life, was a federal lobbyist for the Department of Defense. So he's been great to have in our team as we go through our government machinations. Laurel, obviously, Anne Murakami, Stuart Rich, Maggie Smith. Oh, geez, I wish I had the list in front of me. Jay Word, and then Mary Campbell is coming back on the board in January. Who am I missing, Laurel? Oh, Anna Sanders. Okay, I think I got everybody.
Oh, did you
Great.
get Susie?
She retired off the board in July.
Oh, that's right.
So
I
she's
forgot.
still, this is the thing I will just say about Feiro is we almost don't let you go. Susie was our board president for several years, especially during COVID, and really helped our organization get through it. And she is now volunteering in our capital campaign. So we definitely don't let you leave. We try to find a place you feel comfortable to stick with us.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lena had a question in the chat. Lena, do you want to ask it, or do you want me to go ahead?
Okay, I was just curious if there was a status or update on the parking that's going on, what's happening in that area. I know with Field Arts and Events Hall, there was a lot of discussion about the parking. Do you know if there's an update?
And I assume you're talking about the Annie and Shores development in the lot next to North Olympic Healthcare. I do not know if there is an update. There is currently more parking in that parking lot on the weekends than there is at City Pier. And so for us, even if it stays what it is now, we will have the parking that we need for the building, even at a higher capacity.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Somebody serious talking.
Sorry about that. That was mine. It was listening to Lena. So I just turned that off. Do we have any other questions for Melissa? This was really a great presentation. Of course, it's recorded, and we will have this up on our website and the slide deck available. It's really exciting, to have a science and arts and cultural center here to go along with our field arts and events hall that, we have in our local community on the peninsula.
I'll just mention, in addition to this recording, which people may not want to sit through, we also have a wonderful 3-minute video about the project that's on our website there, which I've posted at marinediscoverycenter.info. And if that's something that you're looking to let other people know about, please feel free to share that website and the video.
Did you put that in the chat, Melissa?
Sure. Yes.
Would be great. All right. Well, if we don't have any, or we do not have any other questions from our group this morning, Melissa has put the link in the chat for you to grab before we leave our Zoom call this morning. I want to also remind everybody about the U.S. time change, because we fall back this Sunday on November 5th. So it's going to get even darker as we move on into the fall and our winter months as we come ahead. I do want to let everyone know that next week on our Coffee with Colleen Wednesday chat, we will be having our presenters from CIE, which is the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship, that is led by, in our local area, by Rick Dickinson, and he will probably have his team on the call. We are so excited, Melissa, for the Marine Discovery Center, and please give me any updates so that we can put these in our weekly newsletter as we are getting closer to the start of this project. And we want to be that advocate for this great place that people can come, visitors and our residents alike, to see, what is going to be happening fully down on the waterfront as all of these projects get completed in the near future. So we are super excited for that. And with that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this morning. It was a great presentation, and we will see you all next week on our Coffee with Colleen chat. And Colleen will be back from the East Coast, and she will host our Wednesday chat next week. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.